Welcome, everybody. Ian Waits, your Dean of Engineering here. All of you, I think, know why we're here, and that's because a little later tonight we're going to announce a collaboration between MIT and Khan Academy to do a bunch of great videos to help with K through 12 education. And Sal is here to talk with you about, what works, what doesn't work, and give some guidance and advice and some feedback to you about that. And just wanted to say two words, or a couple thoughts rather, about that. One is that it was the work that you guys did that convinced us that we could really go off and do this in a big way. So we're going to. We're going to sort of launch this publicly and see if we can get 500 or 1,000 videos a year of people here at MIT demonstrating great concepts. So you guys were the proof that we could do it. So. Thanks for that. The second part is our whole model for it is that it ought to be absolutely low administrative overhead, and that people who come on and want to develop a great video for K through 12, that there'd be some process they'd go through to learn how to do it, and that would be through watching some videos that tell them how to do it. And so part of the thing that we're going to do tonight is tape Sal giving you guys advice or any questions that you have, and then we'll sort of cut that down later so that we can post it up on the site, and that people can who don't have the benefit of being here in this room because they don't yet know about the collaboration, in months and years to come, they can look at that and get some really good advice about what's hard or what's easy. So you guys ought to feel free to share any concerns or thoughts or recommendations or questions that you have, because ultimately not only were you the folks who showed us that it was possible to do this, but you can be the folks then who will help others do it by asking really good questions. Okay? Any questions for me before I introduce Sal, who's the important guest here? All right. When you do ask questions, since we are trying to film it, speak into the mics. Okay, we've got 4 of them in the room, and just pass them around before you ask the questions. All right, Sal Khan.
No, this is super fun, and I saw many of your videos already. So I recognize a few. I recognize the beet and the cabbage in the teapot. So what I want to do, I want to make this super conversational. I mean, we were talking about, okay, and we even said in our organization, is there a list of things that people should think about before they make a video? And I could brainstorm, and we've done it a couple of times. I mean, the A, B, and C, and D. But what I want to do is kind of think about that list with you guys, because I mean, to a large degree, we don't even know what exactly is the right formula, and for all we know, there isn't just one formula. That there's a bunch of different types of videos that would work or not work. So, I mean, in your minds, I mean, based on what y'all have seen of some of my videos, of some of your own videos, of some of other educational videos that are out there, what have y'all seen as stuff that is kind of that you like about some of the good stuff and that you don't like about some of the bad stuff? And I'm just going to, we'll see if it works. I might just try to make a list, and then we can see maybe at the end we do have a list of the stuff that we should. So any ideas or thoughts or nothing? Nothing pops out of it? Yeah. And I'll give you the microphone just so it gets, oh, you have one. Oh, very good.
Creative? Something that was completely unexpected, something creative.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually, and it's funny because you would think that that's kind of like a starting point for, this is very nice chalk, but you would think that that's a starting point, but it is amazing how much educational content is just like not creative, and frankly, I think it comes from like I think what happens in most, whether it's written content or video content, is that it's a very top-down process. That people say, oh, we need to make state standard 3.2.1. Then they hire a bunch of academics to, not that academics are bad, but but they hire a group of people to say what that content should be, and then by the time it gets to the actual producer of the video, it's kind of so managed that a lot of the creativity and the human part. Actually, I'll throw human in there too. So I'll also contribute. So and slightly different, but they're related. But I think human is a big part of what makes people connect with something, as they're good at connecting. Any other thoughts, ideas? Yeah.
So certainly, like enthusiasm, present with enthusiasm.
Yes.
How fun you're making the
Yeah.
lesson plan to really engage students.
Yeah. No. And that actually that might be. I don't know. Maybe at the end of this we'll maybe rank these, but I think that might be the single, I mean, enthusiasm. All right. How do you recognize that from some of my videos? I have to talk out loud while I. But no, I mean, it's shocking how many, like you even see these, competing websites or whatever they are, but like they have a teacher out there and they're competent. I mean, they know what they're doing, and the next step in the equation is, and it's just like, do you care? Do you, are you into this? And I think that's like the energy level and the enthusiasm. And even there's days that all of my days aren't happy, fun days. Something happens, I get a ticket or something, and I'm in a little grumpy mood. I get off the phone with my mom or what, and she's very good at that. And I've made videos in that mood, and they're horrible. Because it comes out. I mean, it doesn't matter if the videos are like completing the square, whatever it is, you can tell that this guy's pissed off for some reason, and it might be at me or he doesn't like this. So yeah, I think and actually one thing I do now, I force myself to smile before I make videos. And actually, I've now forced myself to smile before I do a lot of things now. But I mean, it is a little, I think there's, your brain obviously makes sure you smile, but I think you can actually, you can wire it the other way. If you literally do that, it's hard to be in a bad mood when you, actually everyone should do it. Just force a smile. It actually is hard to stay in a bad mood if you do that. And especially if you force yourself to laugh. That really gets it to another level. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
I think you definitely want to make it relatable to the students that are watching, because you can talk about a lot of concepts at a high level.
Yeah.
But it's not going to have the same impact as if it's deals with something that they've seen in the world or that they have in their house.
Yeah, and I think it's and I'm not sure of the right answer here, because it's sometimes, so I agree with you, and I think sometimes, is there a relatable? I think I 100% agree, but for me, and push back if this is not right, I mean, there's some concepts that, like, you don't always, so relatable in the traditional sense is, let's show how this concept is used by a pizza parlor owner, or let's show them how, but there's another level of relatability that I think even if you do something that's very abstract, you can make it a little bit more concrete with examples. You can make it a little bit, you can show that it's really the same problem as this other type of problem, or it's really the same common sense or the same logic that would get you to this abstract idea that would get you to this very, so yeah, I think relatable, but it's a more broad, at least my sense, it's a broader sense. You don't have to, yeah.
I was going to say, I think it's more, there has to be a reason why you're teaching this, or why a student wants to know that. If it's just because it exists and someone 200 years ago thought it up, so you should know it because it exists, that's not a good reason.
Yes, although I mean, I agree, but sometimes the why is so the best is it's cool. And I mean, because that could, in fact, really that should be a why for almost anything. I mean, if the person who's not teaching it does not think it's cool, they shouldn't be the person that's about to communicate it. But I mean, there are concepts. I mean, maybe I'm wrong here that at least while you're doing that very nugget of concept to give someone the application, it's sometimes hard to give. This is why petroleum engineers use this concept, or because then you have to do all of the. But I think you're right. I think there's a why and it's a relatable. But sometimes I think, the why doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. Oh, when you work in finance, this is how you would use it. It actually, the enthusiasm, I think, is maybe sometimes the best way to implicitly communicate the why. That like, I think that's how we operate as humans. Like it's if I in a very dry way say, and mechanical engineers do this and this is, and if people didn't know this, the bridges would collapse, you still wouldn't care. But if I just said, this gives me goosebumps, like this is like something, tells you something about the structure of the universe, it's like a religious, even if it's complete most useful concept, if you really have that enthusiasm, I think then people say, I should pay attention because this person cares. And I think, but I think you're exactly right. Any other, yeah?
There being some sort of aspect that's unexpected. Either you present something that's counterintuitive in the beginning, or you do a demonstration and you sort of lead into the fact that what you see is maybe not what you thought was going to happen, and then you go through and explain it.
Yeah, no, I think I'm going to put, so and maybe later we're gonna group this into like always do and nice to do, but I'll put unexpected here, because unexpected, because I think it is like I agree. I think it's like a powerful tool to like like, get someone thinking along one direction, or maybe they were already thinking along this direction, or they had a misconception, and then all of a sudden, oh, you were, and it's happened implicitly sometimes, and I've seen other videos. No, but I think that's a good one. Any other, yeah.
I think
I don't like being on the stage, but
clarity,
yeah.
I think is really key, and
Yeah.
I see that in your videos that it's
yeah,
very,
no,
very
I think
clear
that's
what's going on.
and clarity. I'll write it, and maybe we'll order this later. And how do you, and maybe we'll rearrange and wordsmith it. But how do you think what do you think is giving it clarity?
I mean,
And I don't know the answer.
I think
yeah.
like in your videos, it's partly
Yeah.
the simplicity of it. Like
Yeah.
it's just very simple things on
Yeah.
screen and your voice.
Yeah.
And you explain like in a very sort of like logical order. I know
Yeah.
in our experience making our videos, we sort of go in the creative, enthusiasm, relatable,
Yeah.
unexpected direction, and then
Yeah.
we sort of back up and we're like, wait, did we clearly explain what we're
Yeah.
trying to convey?
No, I think there is and I don't know. So it's kind of a clarity, a kind of I don't know. And I'm not saying these are what my videos. I'm saying these are maybe the ideal, but it's kind of almost a simple elegance that simplicity. I think elegance is it's. And elegance is kind of a loaded word. I mean, maybe I don't, because that kind of, I think, it shouldn't be something you think about too hard, because then it becomes unelegant. if you say I'm going to make an elegant video, then it's the best way to not make one. But yeah.
That is a really loaded word.
Yeah,
Pure maths and applied maths.
Exactly.
Go over it.
Exactly.
But really a good story. So
Yes.
so I think that
I think that's probably the storytelling. I think is. Yeah, no, I think that is. There's something there, and it's not even clear in my head exactly, but I think there's something about like good. It's funny because people said, who do you think would be like other good instructors? And the people that I can't get out of my head whenever someone asks that is like Bill Cosby, right? Like I would love to learn math or science or quantum physics or whatever from Bill Cosby, because he just the way he like paces himself and his and I think it's because he's a storyteller and he creates these like moments of hilarity and just but it's just natural. It's not actually I'm going to write down natural. It's kind of human and human natural. Actually I'm going to throw in there conversational, which I think might be the top of the list, because the one experience I've found, and it was, and I saw it a little bit in some of y'all's videos, is that, and I see this a lot, and when I started doing this, I tried to get a lot of buddies, a lot of them MIT grads, to make videos, and some of them are amazing teachers. Like I've seen them tutor people. It's like, wow, you really know your stuff, and you can relate the information in these really cool ways. They're able to do all of that, and as soon as I say, oh, let's do a video, they freeze up, and they want to over prepare, and they want to script it, and this is the part that it's frankly, this is the one where we're having the hardest time finding just conversational videos, which is fun because it's like the easiest to do. I mean, you literally just talk. You literally just think out loud. You don't write a big script. I mean, maybe worst case you write a few bullet points just to remember what you're going to talk about, but not over work it. Any other? Yeah, in the back.
I think that having a video that the learning doesn't stop when the video stops. That it keeps the conversation going. It makes students want to go out and try maybe that exact thing over and over again, or something that video made them think of. They want to try something entirely different.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot, and I think there is, and I don't think I do that in every video, and I should probably do it more. But what would be the best way to so kind of the thinking goes beyond the video, or the thinking, or makes you want to think about the problem. Makes you want to think. I don't know.
Thought-provoking?
Thought-provoking, I think, is, yes. That makes you want to think. It provokes.
Just a suggestion.
That's good. Thought-provoking. No, I think that's exactly right. Because at first when you said it goes beyond the video, I was thinking, oh, maybe there are these like, because there are. I think it is good to do videos sometimes where it's like, here's a question, and here's a brain teaser, and then you have. In the next video, I'll tell you the answer, and even that's fun because then there's a natural break point. But then there is just something like, something as simple as, if you teach, I don't know if you don't know Ulam spirals. I actually haven't made a video on it yet, but if you take all of the prime numbers and you make a spiral, or if you take all the numbers and you count just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you make a spiral like that, and then you plot where all the prime numbers are, it creates a kind of fascinating pattern, right? And you can make a video on that, and that by itself is cool and thought-provoking. But then throw out stuff. Well, what if you plotted all of the perfect squares? What if you plotted? What if you colored based on the number of factors a number has? Or I mean, we don't know the answers to these things, but they would be interesting. Interesting. Yeah. So I think what you're hitting on is while you're doing the video, and this is key for being conversational, because this can only happen if you're really conversational, is your brain will naturally, and all of you guys have super curious minds, your brain will naturally, well, I wonder what would happen if that happened there, and to just vocalize those things. I mean, I think sometimes it happens in people's brains, but they're not willing to vocalize it because they're like, oh, I don't want to sound unprofessional. But let's just let it. I mean, I was doing the geometry postulates, and I was talking about why SAA is not a congruency postulate. And then I also said, and it's obvious why they don't call it SSA, why it's not the ASS postulate. And it's one of those things that your brain is like, yeah, that would be awkward and make people giggle, but then your mouth just says it, and then you're like, oh, should I take that out? And then, oh no, that's a couple times I've had to take stuff out, but it's any other yeah, right here.
So I think for demos, it's particularly important that it relate back to the actual concept, right? So like I used to teach high school, and there are thousands of videos ostensibly educational on YouTube with explosions and this blowing up and that blowing up, but in very few of them do you actually understand the scientific fundamentals, right? That, well, you heat it up so there's expansion of gas and everything. It's like when I used to teach, I used to say it was like showing a video of a car and expecting students to, oh, they've seen that. Now, clearly they understand how an internal combustion engine works. Just because
that, I think, is the meat of, that's what, I mean, a lot of this is the meat, but that's the meat of, I think, where traditional, even Nova and PBS and even traditional educational videos they think it's all about, and even like which I think is all TED is all, but like that's they show you something visual but you're not, and so what would be the best? No, I think there has to be meat, I guess, is the there has to be I'm trying to, yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why, I mean, to some degree, the videos, I mean, hopefully some of my videos encapsulate some of these ideas, but at the end of the day, they are getting you to something that you will know how to do. You're not just, or introducing you to something at a deeper level. So, I guess meat. I mean, I don't apologize to any vegetarians that there's, but yeah, I mean, there definitely should be, there should be a feeling after watching the video of like, yeah, like there's something that I got out of it. Like it wasn't just a cool thing. It wasn't just something that, I mean, it should be creative and enthusiasm, inspire, and all of that kind of stuff. And it doesn't have to do all of that stuff. I mean, look, there are videos where I just do a worked example. But even there, you can still have enthusiasm and you can still be human and relatable, but it's really just a worked example. And that's fine. But there's meat there at least. Like here's an example of this type of problem. It's a slightly different problem than the other types of problems. And you can walk away with a little life experience there that's going to be valuable. And no, I think, and you're exactly right. It's amazing. Most of when people immediately think video and education, they immediately think in terms of video is here and education is here. In fact, and there was a gentleman who sent me some videos, and he was very professional. And at first, I watched them, and he had a video about, it was called stochasticity, right? And at first I was like, oh, this guy's like, and he is talented. I mean, his editing, it was off the charts, and he sang a song about it. But at the end, I was like, he didn't really, I mean, it was like, if you knew what stochasticity meant, you would enjoy the vibrations and the random things that were falling out from different sides. But if you did not know what stochasticity means, this video really did not tell you. Now you just knew that this word existed that somehow relates to random things kind of happening, but you didn't really have a good feel for it. Yeah, exactly. I think that might be one of the, I mean, my gut sense, and Frida, is if I had to, the big ones, enthusiasm, conversational, human, natural, and I think meat. I think, and if you can get some of the other stuff in there, that's bonus, I think. I mean, because if you have those, I mean, even just meet enthusiasm. I mean, I'm drawing analogies to other things in life, but if you just have, yeah, human, yeah, already you're, and obviously, this is important because you can't be confusing meat, I guess. But yeah.
The challenge with making something conversational is getting it so it has that clarity that it needs without sort of rambling. Because I think, a lot of the videos that I did with Joshua there, we weren't really scripted, we were just talking to each other, but we realized when we edited that we were sort of rambling, and unless somebody knew where our conversation was going, it'd be very hard for them to follow along. Because they're not having the conversation, they're just watching the conversation.
And I think, I mean, frankly, even my early videos were a little rambling.
So, I mean,
they still are a little rambling.
Do you have any advice on maybe how to make it conversational like that, but still feel like the viewer is along with the conversation, is maybe like even anticipates the questions that are going to be brought up?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll take a little bit of practice. I mean, I was much more rambling, and I still am kind of, and a little bit of rambling, there's nothing wrong with that. That's what makes it conversational. But I think just a little bit of practice, a little bit of, I don't edit a lot. My videos just out of laziness, but that could be one way, so that if editing will make you more comfortable in speaking from train of thought a little bit, as long as it's I mean, all of you guys are structured thinkers. I mean, I'm not worried about that. You guys are capable of structuring thought in your mind, and maybe just when you're talking about it, maybe it gets a little bit rambling. But if knowing that you can later edit out the rambles makes you more comfortable, then you should do that. You should do anything possible to make you more at ease. And some things that aren't bad, a couple of times when I have if I'm giving a talk, not so much a video, because video I have, if I mess up, I can redo it. But if I'm doing like a major speech at a major event and I only have 4 minutes, I do sometimes say, okay, what are the points I want to get in 4 minutes? And I will write a script, and then I keep wordsmithing the script, and I read it a couple times, and then I throw it away. And you do that, and that could actually, or you write the script, and it gives you confidence that you know what you're going to talk about, and then you just leave 4 bullet points that just make sure that you don't forget those 4 points, and then you throw it away. And then when you literally have a conversation about it, you'll be really tight. And but I think it's just practice. I think is and that's the fun thing. The less work you put in each version, the more versions you can make. And so I think there is. I was telling the folks earlier. I do get into kind of a paralysis sometimes, especially if I'm in a domain that's, there's a lot of facts or the spelling. I have trouble spelling parallel, as I still don't know how to spell it. But the you get into this paralysis of preparation, where you're like, oh, I'm going to mess this up. Oh, let me read that again. Let me make sure I got the words right. Let me make sure I got that mechanism right. And what I've found is, as soon as I've become aware of myself doing this, and as soon as I see myself doing that, I say, okay, screw it. Just make a video and pretend like this video is the practice video. And 9 times out of 10, that video becomes the video. Because I just think it's a practice video. I said, let me just do it. And then I do it, and it's there. And actually what you'll find is, whatever, 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes isn't a long time. And so usually when I prepare a lot, especially when it's a concept that's new, I'm not an expert at it, or I'm a new expert at it. When I prepare, then all of a sudden and when I do the video becomes like 25 minutes. And I was like, oh, I had all that in me, and I could have prepared a lot less and done a shorter video. But yeah, in the back.
How can a video engage the learner or the viewer to realize questions and curiosities that they didn't know they had? No, that's we're constantly experimenting. Sometimes it can do it explicitly. Sometimes the video can explicitly say, think about this. Like, this is something, we don't know the answer here. This is an open question. Try it out yourself. So those are explicit cues to tell the student, those, I guess it falls in the category of the thought-provoking. But I think there's maybe a more implicit way that some of this stuff I think does. I think when you have the enthusiasm and the train of thought and your style of thinking, when you show the user or the viewer that you are naturally curious and that your mind is naturally making connections, I think, and I'm not sure, it'll make their minds start to say, oh wow, that's kind of a fun thing to do, to just draw these connections and these parallels. But yeah, I don't think there's a right answer to that, but I think it is. Video at the end of the day, you can kind of interact with it. You can pause it and repeat it and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it is someone modeling something for someone else in some way, right? And so the best you could do is, I mean, sometimes explicitly ask them questions, but which I think would actually be good. I think that's maybe something I need to do more of, is more open question videos, where it's, hey, here's a cool idea. Like I said, what happens if you color all the numbers based on number of factors? I don't know the answer to that, and then we would get answers. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that's a start. We'll experiment. See. Any other questions or any other thing? I mean, I get a good sense that we got a lot of, well, anyway, questions or stuff to throw in there. Yeah.
One, I like the brevity of your videos.
Yeah.
I mean, they have like, I don't learn very well by reading, but I learn well by like asking a question, then having like someone like your cousin or something answer the question.
Yes. Yeah.
And these all seem to be like the 5 or 10 minute answer that you would get to a single question that makes it a nice little compact thing. And also there's no frills because it's just like someone, you know, sort of answering the question. But as soon as we, you know, brought it up from just being like a screenshot and we started getting into the frame, I felt like all of my attention went to all of the visual stuff and all of the stuff that goes into making a video that involves people moving around and lighting and all of that stuff.
And, you know, that's where I mean, there's folks back there that are much more expert at that than I am. Actually, probably all of y'all are more expert. You're right. I mean, it becomes more there. And frankly, when you're, and actually this is one, I actually think it becomes much more difficult when you yourself are in front of the camera. Because then you're not just conscientious of what you're going to say, you're conscientious of how you look, and you're, you know, put my hands in my pocket, do I comb my hair? You know, like, I mean, there's all of these things. So I don't know the simple answer of how do you solve that, but my sense is if you show more of the, so if you're doing an experiment, you know, if you just show the hands and the device, that is better than showing someone in front of the device from a distance. It'd be cooler to have that screenshot, so it almost feels like you're doing the experiment yourself. I think, you know, I think maybe in this, especially when people are in the shot, and I agree, it probably is harder to just kind of get that brevity, jump in, jump out. You know, maybe even, you know, do very small chunks and maybe address very clear questions. You know, if you're doing a certain type of device, how does this laser work? You're like, you literally try to narrow it down to the smallest chunk of meat that is, you know, that is there, and you just do it. Because you're going to edit it anyway because you're doing this different type of form factor. So you do the smallest possible. You know, it could be a 2-minute video. It doesn't have to be an 8-minute. You know, don't force 8 minutes if there's not 8 minutes. Then you can do another 2-minute video, and that also de-risks it. And if you mess up one part, you don't have to throw the whole thing out. And then it does make each little chunk an answer to a question, like, which I think is probably even more valuable when you go to stuff like, how do I run this experiment, or and actually it'll allow, when the more granular it is, it also allows you to introduce, so let's say I see one of your videos, and I'm like, oh, this is a really good video, he really showed a really good experiment, and he explained it well, but I think people are going to be a little bit confused about this point. I could go in and I could make a little video that says, well, my chalk talk style. I can say, okay, you know, in his video he talked about this, I just want to clarify, this is what, you know, he's talking about when he talks about, you know, frequency and wavelength being inverse relationships. He means this, and then watch the next concept. So I think, yeah, the more chunkable, the better. Let me write that down, because that's chunkable, chunks. And I think you know, frankly, smaller is better, but don't make it artificially small. I actually did a few videos for CNBC, and they wanted me to do 3-minute videos, and I mean, the reality is, some of those, it was really good that they enforced that discipline on me to make 3-minute videos. So if you go on the finance playlist, some of those, the ones that are like 3 minutes, those are for CNBC, for their website. And they wanted it because I think they wanted the option of maybe showing it on the show every now and then. And some of them, it was really good that they forced me to the discipline of the 3-minute chunks, but some of them it was unnatural. Some of them it was like, yeah, you really cannot explain a credit default swap properly in 3 minutes, right? I mean, there are people with PhDs who don't fully understand this thing. Come on, give me 10 minutes. You know, but yeah, but I think the smaller the better, and really discipline yourself. Say, okay, maybe I can do that in 2 videos instead of 1. Maybe I can do that in 3 videos instead of 1. But if it takes you 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it's no big deal. But above 10 minutes, you have to question whether you could have made into multiple videos. Yeah.
And then speaking of multiple videos, do you ever find yourself finding that you can create one video on one topic 7 different times at different kind of different levels of understanding, or geared towards a different audience?
Yeah, you know what, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier. The way it's kind of happened on Khan Academy is, for a given concept, I do one version. I mean, sometimes I do different takes on it. Like, even for very basic arithmetic, there's different ways of thinking about borrowing or regrouping or how to visualize things like that. So I'll do the different versions of teaching it, but they're all at the same level. And then I'll do another video if you want to go deeper. And sometimes I label them advanced or proofy. Here's a more sophisticated rationale, or this is a more in-depth conceptual understanding of what this thing is. But I think, you could do the easy, medium, hard version of the same video. Although I think it would be more value. I'm not 100% sure. I think maybe having, the person who's eventually going to watch the hard version probably will want to watch the easy and the medium version first anyway, just because it's going to be, why not? Why just jump into the hardest possible thing and not understand what's happening? But obviously it should be hard because it's actually going into more depth. In some ways, when you go, and it should only get more complicated if it's actually giving more meaning. It's not just harder for some. But I think but I don't know the answer. I mean, it'd be fun to experiment. And I think the key. I mean, this is not so much what the end product should have, but I think maybe like more of a process thing. And it goes back to the smiling. I think iterating is a big. I suspect. And I don't know. I mean, you guys are doing stuff that I've never done before. Actually, going out there and with film and lights and. But I know for myself, it's the videos. I do redo a video every now and then because I messed that up, or wait, I really don't understand that quite as well as I should have. But what I find is even going through that exercise of bungling one or two videos was better than studying for another 5 hours, because the bungle let me know, oh, this is where it got a little bit weird. So I would encourage, if you say I'm gonna take a week off and make a video, don't make, have a video done by that first day. Like have a crappy version of the video done by the first day. Then have another version after another 2 days, and then maybe your third version. And I think it's going to be a lot better because you'll know exactly, instead of really preparing everything, and then maybe still having yeah.
Yeah, in terms of that, preparation, I think so. Not so much like preparing for the video, but preparing, knowing the meat essentially.
Yeah.
It allows you to get like this enthusiasm and this sort of natural conversation because you know it so well. It's just like talking to a colleague. And what was really nice about this, I think, what MIT was doing is that a lot of us are getting PhDs in the fields that we were teaching on, and so it was really nice to be able to just go and I have this whole background of knowledge that you can. Really go from and get nice. And
it becomes a good excuse to ask silly questions. Now that you're a third-year PhD, of course I know this, but what's the best way to explain this, Mr. Professor? You're like, oh, okay, and that's happened to me. There was a couple of times where, actually when I was doing the immunology, I had a question where I was, do B cells, are they activated by antibodies or by the helper T cells, or both, or? Because actually, if you look at an immunology book, in one chapter it says, oh, once they find, the antigen, then the antibody, it gets activated that way. Another part of the book, oh, there's these things called helper T cells, and they find them, and then they release these cytokines and all these type of things. And I kept reading like the two chapters, and I was like, but they don't say, do you need both? Do you need one or the two? Are there certain types? And I thought it was just a stupid question because it was like basic immunology. It was actually something that you would see in high school biology, but it wasn't obvious to me from the book. I read on the web. I couldn't find the answer. I called a professor at Duke who was a friend of mine, and I asked him. He's like, oh, that's a really good question. It's an area of research. We actually, we actually now know that there are special cases that it actually could go either way. And actually, and that's the thing textbooks do to you. When they're not sure, they just take it out. They don't say we are not sure, which would make it super cool, right? It would make it like, wow, I'm at the cutting edge. I don't know the reason, but they take it out, and so it allowed me to ask that silly question, which ended up being a pretty good question. And when I did the video, I was like, and I just called my friend at Duke in the video. I said this, and it turns out, because this was confusing to me, and I think that's good communication to the student, saying, hey, look, I was confused by this. But this is how it works out. But I think what you started off with is, and this is what I'm least worried about with you guys is subject, depth or mastery. Subject mastery. And I think, frankly, going back to that previous comment about most educational videos, why there is no meat, it's because I think the people who are producing them don't have an in-depth understanding of what they're producing. I mean, you watch the Nova specials on the expanding universe. I don't think the people making it understand, maybe they do, but necessarily, I mean, I think that they'll get a famous quantum physicist in to talk about it. They definitely understand it, but the visualizations are sometimes artificial or superficial because there's not that subject matter expertise behind the video production. There's more graphics and all the rest. So I think, yeah, you're right. I mean, the subject mastery, but I think that's what you guys have down, cold. But I think that is important. I mean, not everyone has everything down cold, and so you just have to internalize it to the point that it is just comes out of you. You're eager to spew it out. It's any other questions? I mean, and feel free to ask anything. I mean, I think this is pretty, but I'm open to other ones. But if you have any general questions about anything, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Answering.
Yeah.
How do you respond to some of the feedback that you get online about your videos?
Yes. So the feedback, and this will be an interesting thing for all of you. Feedback, and I think I was lucky starting off with my cousins. And even then, I was already tutoring them a little bit, and so they kind of liked me, and and I had a little bit of confidence, and they were the first people I got feedback from. And so what I found is the feedback is hugely valuable, and can sometimes make you want to cry. And no, I mean, and it's sad because even today I might put a video up and like the first 4 comments are "Thank you, this is awesome," and the last one's like "You suck," like you should. And I literally I start like I feel like my two and a half year old. I start like feeling, and then I keep waiting for the next positive comment to make me want to do a video again. So I think that's gonna be, I think that you just kind of have to steel yourself up for some of this. I mean, just realize what feedback, and just realize how cruel some people can sometimes be on YouTube. And I think another thing is, I mean, and we were talking about this earlier, is anything that we end up exposing on Khan Academy is, it's going to be going through a filter of, okay, we think this is going to be something that people are going to respond well to. But I think there's a danger for the stuff that shows up on Khan Academy, especially when this is starting off, is that a lot of the students, for better or for worse, are used to me. And now all of a sudden, if another even very good video shows up, they're gonna be like, "Oh, who's this joker? And, go away." And so I think because I actually did a couple of videos with some Stanford professors, and we actually did them conversationally. The two of us were having a conversation about their research, and I thought they were really good. And it was more me. I was kind of like, I viewed myself. I was like the academic Charlie Rose. I was asking him questions and tell me more about that, and most of the people said, "Hey, this is really awesome. Can you get more like experts in to do this type of thing?" And actually, I think that is a video format that y'all could do, which I think, you got thousands of experts on campus, and you literally just, even talk to them about their lives or their careers, or almost like a biography type of thing. I think would be powerful. But you put those up, and I kind of blew their minds because I was at Stanford. I was like, let's put them up on YouTube, and we did. And I linked it to Facebook, and we immediately got like 300 comments on it within like 2-3 hours, like over the course that I was there. And most of them were awesome. Like they were like, "Oh, this is great. Bring more experts." But a couple of people were like, "Who is this joker, Sal? Why are you?" And like by accident, the guy read it, and he's like, he was like a Stanford professor, and he, it's human nature. And I was like, "Oh, no, don't worry. They do it to everybody," And I was trying to like. And this guy was he was like a, he's otherwise very confident person. But yeah, I think that's one of the main things that, I have noticed on MIT OpenCourseWare there are no comments. And that's a double-edged sword. I mean, it definitely keeps it G-rated because some of those comments are also, but you can't get the feedback otherwise. But yeah, I think that'll be an interesting thing. Yeah.
Okay, I have one last question.
Yeah.
When we think about these videos and who we're delivering them to, who should we be thinking about when we're explaining these topics?
Yeah, and this goes back to the do you do it 7 times for different skill levels? And so this is kind of and I don't know if this is the exact right answer, but this is kind of the mindset that I'm in when I do these videos, especially after I've seen the diversity and the people who've consumed the exact same video and found value in them. And literally, the videos on credit default swaps, there are 4th graders who've come up to me at parties and said this was awesome. There are PhD students who came up to me at parties and said this was great. And so the mindset, and we're trying to instill this in the software, and I don't know if y'all met John. John's he's the father of jQuery, and he's on our team. But even in our software, I think the key is you want to make it so no matter what it is. It could be quantum physics. It could be that an intelligent 6th or 7th grader, so a 12 or 13-year-old
who has at least done the prerequisites, who you assume they know the prerequisite material, would enjoy it and find it. Because to some degree, their brains are just as developed as ours. And to think that somehow that there needs to be different content for a college student and a 7th grader, it actually doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, what's the difference? It's just maybe they know a few more words, or I don't know. And even there, when you use, it's okay to use words as long as you give some context around the words. And so people actually learn the vocabulary. But yeah, I think that's a very important, because it's the very unintuitive thing, that even if we're doing computer science or quantum physics, think of a 7th grader. That's the, yeah.
Super. Sal, we're going to hustle you off to your next thing.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
so, thank you. Thank you, guys. And yes, should have a nice lecture tonight at 7 o'clock in Stata, too, for people to come and listen to
I'll
it
do the whole song and dance
more.
show.
Yeah.
See,
All right. Super. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Yeah.